Hi there, and welcome to this lecture. In previous video, we looked at what's the difference between using required and use keywords. We also looked at how we can import default exported methods from modules, or we can explicitly define which methods we want to import, such as the dumper method from the data dumper module. Now in this video, we're going to explore how we can actually build our own methods we want to export from our modules. We're also going to look into what's the difference between class method and a static method. Let's get started. Now let's introduce a new file, and to be precise, this is going to be a Perl module file, and we're going to name it our module and .pm for Perl module, and in this file we want to declare the package name, which is our module. We also want to return a truthy value, we want to use strict, and we want to use warnings, which is always good practice to do. And we also want to introduce a method, and let's say this method is going to be called add nums, which is going to take two numbers, let's say num1 and num2, and we're going to get them from our argument list, and what we're going to return is num1 plus num2. Now let's save our module file, let's go back to the script file, and let's try to use our module. Now let's run the script file, let's provide capital I flag for including module paths, which is going to be our current directory, noted by ./, and then we're going to run our script file. So we need to save it, and if we run this, all looks good. Now, let's say we want to call this function called addNums. So I'm going to invoke the method addNums, and I'm going to give two numbers, 3 and 2. And I'm also going to print it out to the console. If we go back and try to run our script file, it's going to complain that addNums subroutine is undefined, and that is true because currently we're not importing anything from our module, and this function addNums is not defined in this script file. So Perl simply doesn't know what we're trying to do when we say addNums. Let's go back to our module file and let's use this module called exporter that we haven't used before. So use exporter, and we're going to also import the import method from the exporter. Now, if you remember from the videos before, when you're calling use, two things happen. Perl is parsing your module name by appending .pm at the end of it to import logic from that module, and it's also calling this import method to import all default exported methods. So here, we're requiring import method from exporter, which will be called on our module to export all the default exported methods. So how you define which methods you want to export is by using keyword or, and then this array called export, where you provide the list of methods you want to export. So add nums in our case. So if we save this, go back to our terminal, run the script file, as you can see, number 5 is printed out to the console. And this is because now, when we're calling the add nums from our script file, this method is imported by default from our module. As before, if we said we don't want to import anything from our module, rerun the script, is going to complain about not being able to find the function addNums, where in order to call this explicitly, we need to provide a full qualified package name, such as our module : addNums, and if you run this, this is working again. So this is how you can export methods from your module file. Now, one thing you're going to notice is that previously, when we were building our classes and instance of the classes, we got this class keyword, which is not the case now in our addNums function. And this is because we're not initializing a new instance of this module. We're simply using addNums function, using these two colons. So this is called a static method. The key takeaway here is that when you're using static methods, you're not getting the class name automatically provided as the first argument. However, if we would be needing the class variable in our function, we could call it with arrow notation. If we save the script file and go back to the module just to print it out. So let's print out the class, let's append a new line, save the module file, we run the script, we're going to see two things. Our module printed out, and then the number 5. So this was the first print statement, where we automatically got the class name, and in our script file, we're printing this method addNums, which adds two numbers. So there's the difference between instance method, class method, and static method. The instance method is called by initializing a new instance from a class, where you're getting the self context, the given attributes, also the class name, and etc. And it's being invoked by this arrow function. Of course, in this scenario, we're not actually building the attributes and the self, and we're not also blessing the self hashref with the package name. However, we're still getting the class name as the first argument, since we're invoking it with an arrow function, and that's why it's called a class method. Now the final method, which we called initially, was with these two colons. We would save this, rerun the script. What you're going to observe here is that actually number 3 was printed out, and then a warning about that we're trying to use uninitialized num2 in addition in our module. So what happened now is that the first two arguments, which are class and num1, were taken directly from our script file as the arguments we passed here. So we're never getting the num2 as the third argument. And instead we end up printing out the class name and trying to add num1 variable, which would hold number 2 in this case, and then adding number 2 variable, which currently is undefined. Now to quickly go back on the export methods, alternative of using this @export array, you could use export underscore OK. And if we remove this class name and print class name and just return the sum of two numbers, we go back to our script, and let's also remove the package name and save this file, run it through terminal. We're going to see that addNums function wasn't defined. Actually, we also need to remove the quote word for explicitly not importing it. Save this, rerun it again, and we're still seeing that warning. And the difference here is when you're using export, as we did initially, without the underscore OK, all the methods in that array are going to be exported by default. When you're using underscore OK appended to export, these methods are not automatically imported, meaning you need to explicitly import those methods you're exporting from your modules. If I save this, rerun the code, it works again. So this is it for this video. We looked at how to use exporter, what's the difference between export and export OK, and we also took a step back and we looked at what are instance methods, class methods, and static methods. Now when you use each is really up to you. And the use case, by the end of the day, really depends on scenarios what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes you just want to encapsulate a logic which does a very simple thing, such as adds two numbers. In that case, you don't really want to initialize a new instance of an object, and you can simply use a static or a class method to do anything that doesn't require a self context. Now, when you need a self context to access attributes that have been initialized by creating an instance of a class, then you would use an instance method and access the current self context. But again, it's really up to a use case. And it's up to you when to use the different accessors at different times. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you at the next one.